So Sam Seder had a really interesting caller today where it wasn't the typical libertarian guys that usually call in to challenge him. It was a very sensible, very civil Republican who was, for lack of a better term, very open-minded to Sam's arguments, but when kind of working out where his belief structure was coming from, they had a really interesting kind of breakdown of how he got to his talking points, where he gets his talking points, and where he kind of had an understanding that maybe he was believing a manipulated, narrative. So it was kind of interesting to watch this guy go from the beginning of the call to the end of the call and just almost, I don't want to say he completely changed his mind, but you could tell that Sam broke through. And I'm very hopeful that there's more people like this gentleman, because he, again, was a very civil person. He had very interesting takes specifically on immigration and the economy, which, when it comes down to it, I think that's realistically like where these guys still kind of hold out, and they're like, yeah, this is why we're Republicans. But yeah, it's really interesting to hear where they're getting their information, how they break that down, and then how they form an argument with it. And this is actually really refreshing too, because there isn't enough of this on the internet, let alone the Majority Report, where you do have civil discourse over important topics, specifically in an election year. Like, these ones have been hammered. So I really appreciate that they covered this. So let's take a look.
Calling from a 706 area code. Who's this? Where are you calling from?
This is Will. How you doing? I'm currently in Virginia.
Will,
a bit of a nomad.
In Virginia. What's on your mind?
Well, God, I just ran across y'all one day on, Twitch, and I kind of like y'all. I don't know why. But I'm a Republican.
I appreciate that. Okay.
This guy sounds like a older guy. All right. So what do you guys think about boomers on Twitch? I mean, I don't want to overgeneralize. This guy could be my age. I'm getting a little up there myself. So, yeah, I mean, it's kind of interesting to hear guys say that, where they're like, oh, I saw you on Twitch. And they sound kind of like my dad's age.
Well, at least now I know why you're confused as to why you like us. But go ahead.
I understand, but yeah, I'm glad to be on here. So I'm all like ready to shoot out of a cannon with all the things y'all have talked about. But I just wanted to stick and focus on what I know, like being through 10 different countries through the military.
Okay.
I served 10 years, so I've seen where we're over there and we're defending even like NATO countries, and they got on the side of their house like, get out of here, baby killers, because they don't even want us there.
Right.
And I've seen more conflicts, many different things, but what they tell us and why we're doing it, it's never the narrative of what they say. So when it comes down to what we see,
and by they, hold on for 1 second. By they, you mean the
politicians.
Okay, all right, fair.
Yeah, it's not the other countries and things of that nature. It's point blank what we are told as civilians. Or when you're in the military, you do what you're told, and we just go with whatever they say. The reason why we're over there is because they got weapons of mass destruction, or the reason why we're going over there is because they attack these civilians. And we're not in war right now, but yet we are. So we're kind of like doing.
I don't believe that. Having stations around the world, I don't understand where these guys kind of say like they want us to be the world police, but then they're like, I don't want to spend money on these countries. And I would like to save our tax dollars and give it to just back to us. It's like, okay, but how do you reconcile with the other side of that, where you want to be a very strong military power, which usually includes being the leader of these countries? Like, at some point, Republicans have become very isolationist, and it's kind of odd to watch where like they just don't really want to participate in world events anymore, or world events, world politics, NATO, any of it.
On the sidebar right now between Ukraine and Israel.
I preemptively apologize. My allergies are killing me today, so I'm a little stuffy.
With multiple different fronts there. And it's all about maybe seaports more so than what they're telling us. And, it's all about land resources, things of that nature. But
You mean as opposed to like democracy?
yeah,
Yeah.
some politician is going to say something. It's all about resources. That's what we're on this earth for, and all the conflict and everything is in between. Is everybody is trying to grab the same resources and materials and try and get connections. And that, the UN is some bullies, but they never put Ukraine inside their
My microphone's picking up some of the audio.
treaty. So, and then Russia said, if you put them in there, we're going to get y'all. When Trump was in office,
I mean NATO.
he said,
You're talking NATO.
yeah, UN, NATO, all of them.
Okay. Well, I mean, I think in general, I mean, I think the idea of democracy and this and that is always a lie. It's always about resources. There are some times where that may align, right? I mean, coincidentally, but it's not the determining factor by any stretch of the imagination. I mean, it's blatantly obvious. If we cared about democracy, we wouldn't, have an alliance. We wouldn't be selling Saudi Arabia weapons. So it's always about resources. I would also just suggest that
money too. I mean, world business too. Like, as long as capitalism is a thing, you're going to want to make money off these, off these countries.
Those resources is more often than not about moneyed interests than it is about necessarily the national security of the country. I mean, I'm sure there are times where it is about maintaining some type of, supposed national security, but more often than not, it's really about like, which corporate interests are interested. But go ahead.
I would like to have the rebuttal. El Paso, Texas, there's a duty station down there, Fort Bliss. It's 15 minutes from the border of Juarez, Mexico. Let's just say I was down there in about 2011. I saw the population at one time was like 1 million for the city.
So you were there in 2011. Okay.
It was down to less than 300,000 when I was coming down there, or when I was there during a couple of years. The drug cartels are catching people's houses on fire, decapitations, and all that stuff. But we're not stepping over there because there was no money to be gained. There was nothing we were going to do because the Mexican leadership, and American sovereignty is.
Yeah. So right now you're arguing for going into Mexico and getting involved in their cartel wars. See, like, that's right there is he's creating a counter argument to his last argument where he's kind of like, no, I want to get out of these countries. I want to stop spending money, but we should go to Mexico and definitely get involved in the cartel battles.
Is deliberate. And these people have been here illegal for years. They're trying to get a better way of life. I understand that. But not everybody's coming through with some good intentions. So the racism.
Yeah, and this is where I'm not sure if this guy developed this in the military, but the whole enemy mentality, and also where you have this weird thing where you'll read one news story about an immigrant that committed a crime or whatever, and then you just kind of formulate that that's all immigrants. Like, there's a wave of, bad immigrants coming in and committing crimes, instead of looking at the logical answer where it's just I mean, you guys always like to use this argument when you're talking about your own, specifically, like, look at Charlottesville, one bad apple, that type of stuff. And then you're just like, oh, well, we gotta get rid of all the apples.
A card that people are saying how he worded it, his rhetoric, he is a walking meme. But the thing is, he is legitimately saying that not everyone here is here for the freedom of. I just
noticed that Sam is also a beard picker. I'm not actually picking my beard, by the way. I'm just kind of finding like hairs and just kind of stroking. I don't know. It's nice. I call it Obi-Waning.
Life, and to take care of everything with our sovereignty. They don't care about what we believe in.
I wonder if he accidentally tugs hairs out and goes,
you could say the same thing about
I do that.
American-born citizens too, right?
Yeah.
Like,
there's crazies.
Well,
there's
I mean, it's not just crazies. There's violent criminals. There's non-violent criminals who do violence by the nature of their criminal acts, right? Like,
Yeah, but guys like this tend to think that all of these cartels are like, they have busloads and busloads of illegal drugs, guns, people. Like, it's like a movie to them all the time. And that's just how their brain works. And then they look at the people in their everyday life and they go, yup, that's what's happening.
People getting their homes foreclosed upon because of criminal fraud by lenders or banks or this and that.
That's more dangerous.
Their act in and of itself may not be violent.
Yeah, that's more dangerous and affects more American people than immigrant crime. I'm sorry,
but the idea of people being homeless and suffering for decades, that is a violence in and of its sort. I mean, I guess the point being that there's no evidence that immigrants bring with them more crime. I have no doubt that amongst the immigrant population, there are criminals because there's...
No, and I hate to meme this, but look at all the mass shootings that happen. How many of them are committed by an illegal immigrant? Okay, like for as much fear as they put on these people, you would think that there would be an equal amount of bodies to essentially justify that fear. But here we are.
Criminals amongst every population.
Yeah.
Right.
Like us.
I understand that, but to do it the proper way, the legal way, you get a job to get here. The same things happen in the Middle East. They're moving up north in Ukraine.
How do you when you think of like immigration as the legal way? What is your understanding of the immigration process in this country? Like, do you think it's
visas or green cards? Visas or green cards, which they're supposed to come here with a job, whether it's temporary under a.
But do you realize how?
Yeah, those are super limited.
How few of those are available?
Those are super limited.
Well, that's
especially
what needs to be fixed.
Green cards are super hard to get. So, I mean,
and implemented. It doesn't mean just come on aboard.
You know what?
Come on, let's just move.
I kind of see where this guy's coming from, and he's not coming from a bad place, but I think that he's got a misunderstanding here. On top of the fact that he's not necessarily wrong that, this does need to be fixed, but with I just don't understand his idea where it's like he wants to have all these people be vetted. I get that, which ironic, right? Having all these people vetted and then these guys don't believe in, vetting people for gun ownership. Hey, consistency in your morals.
Move to Ohio. Go way past everything. How are you getting?
Wait, hold on a second.
Okay.
Let's talk about when you say Ohio, are you talking about Haitians living there?
Hold on.
Well, I don't know what was there. I just go off of what we're told, right?
Well, I mean,
and there's two sides of the story on that.
We're told that there's anywhere from 5 to 15,000.
There's two sides of the story, and you're only getting your one side. Are you kidding me? Like the way that he just said that, he's acting like there's more to the story. There's definitely the dogs, and you guys are just ignoring that blatantly.
That have moved to
the
Haiti.
eating of
why
dogs.
do you think that they're there?
And
First
cats.
of all, how do you
cats
think they
and dogs? They're eating the cats and dogs.
Well, I don't know about that. I've seen the governor of Texas, and one of them was sitting there shipping them himself to New York and
Abbott did do that.
Places.
Well, not Haitians. I mean, these Haitian.
And on top of that, that didn't produce these crime waves that you're talking about. Violent crime is down. Despite all of your fears, violent crime is down.
Immigrants, what is your understanding of these Haitian immigrants in Ohio?
All right. Well, I know what you're referring to. I don't think all of them are Alf, like they're eating cats from the old sitcom, but there are some that believe in their culture.
Thus proving exactly that how old I thought this gentleman was.
Culture of voodooism. I know for a fact they can't drive, from what...
Wait, back up. Did he just say the voodoo? They have a culture of voodooism? Sorry, I got... What? Wait. So, that's another thing. You guys have this idea that they're killing cats and doing blood sacrifices?
All these reports are showing. The car accidents are more troubling
these
than
fake reports that the main one was they traced it back to a some Nazi group, a literal Nazi group, blood something and blood tribe, I think is what it was called. And yeah, it turned out to be completely false, but you guys have already run with this. And then they found the lady who did the little Facebook post where she just thought she was sharing something and being a little cheeky, and it just happened to blow up. Yeah, well, maybe you guys should vet your information more before just going full blast into, I believe that, I'm going to stand up for that.
Eating animals.
Mike DeWine, the Republican governor, has addressed this and says there needs to be more training for people driving there. So you're saying
Okay, well, and then yeah, that's a capitulation. And yeah, you know what? I'll admit. But at the same time, I was just thinking about that yesterday, just about Americans, specifically in my state, where we've gotten a little lax on the driving laws, and you're starting to notice that just everybody drives like a complete asshole.
there's validity.
I just want to wait. I just want to just back up. First off, do you understand these people to be here legally, or as you would say, illegally?
From what I understand, they're illegal. If they do not have passports, visa, they had to take a standard test to be here. The American
they are
history, right?
They are here under a program, a statutory program called temporary protected status. They are legal. They are legal immigrants. They are here under the temporary protected status statute, which has been in existence for 30 some odd years. It was determined that in Haiti, as you may know this, there has been natural and political turmoil, excessive amounts of it, that are there. Now, I would imagine what Haiti has been subjected to by this country for centuries, right? Like, the story that Haiti, they're the only country in this hemisphere that had a revolution where slaves liberated themselves.
Yep.
They were then embargoed by France. And the only
Every time I hear liberation and then the embargo by France, France is just like, not again.
way that they could keep the country from being able, basically starving or, being shut off from commerce, was that they were obligated to pay restitution to France for the freeing of themselves. That restitution went on for literally 150 years. That up to 40% of their GDP was taken for decades upon decades, over a century. So they had no ability to build any type of economy through, I think it was like into the 1940s, maybe even later, until this debt was paid off. On top of which, the United States was so terrified at the idea of slaves getting the idea that they could revolt and free themselves, that the U.S. has been involved in Haiti for that almost 50 years by consistently overthrowing and involving themselves in the institution of governance there.
Well, they also send missionaries like a mofo.
Often in part because
Can't tell you how many times in school they would offer us to go to Haiti.
they essentially did not want, up until through the 1800s, obviously they didn't want their slaves to think like there's an opportunity for you here. But then they didn't want the resources to be used by Haiti to develop their economy. There's also a lot of cheap labor there. And so, we have a certain amount of responsibility. And the Haiti's literally been taken over by gangs. Once again, this is in the wake of us literally involving ourselves in cooing. I don't know how many.
Argentina.
Well, I'm talking about.
Just a little side note here. If you guys know anything about the Sneeko Andrew Tate stuff that was going on just a few days ago, which if you don't, Andrew Tate and Sneeko, this weird Rumble streamer, he's a streamer, but he is biracial and his dad is Haitian. And at some point, Andrew Tate started calling into question and like getting really, white supremacist with his stuff, even though he is also mixed race. Go figure. And then he's also like, our cross genetics makes me. It's like I was bred to be a superior being. Andrew Tate is just an ass. I mean, breaking news, guys. But at some point, they got into an argument about Sneeko's dad being Haitian, and with the news coming out here. At some point, Sneeko was even just like, oh, yeah. You know what? They do. They actually do, like, still practice the voodoo. Like, he's giving fuel to this stuff. But then somebody did a little research into Sneeko's dad and found out that Sneeko's dad is one of those Haitians that is so rich where it's kind of like he's part of the reason that they are in poverty. Like, he's that rich, and they just don't allocate resources to anything outside of just these guys being rich. But that made me think about like how these gangs are running everything and how the hell they haven't actually just like set up a government. Like, how weird would it be if these violent gangs, like, and they are violent. Like, I didn't mean to do that, but what I wanted to say is if they actually form a government that was pretty successful, like, that would be kind of funny. And just, yeah.
In Haiti,
That's just a thought.
yeah, we've done.
I know.
But also, why aren't these gangs going after people like Sneeko's dad? I'm just asking questions here.
And so they're here legally in a temporary basis. And some Haitian immigrants lived in Springfield. There was a desperate need for labor in the wake of COVID there. The city has been incredibly depressed. And since the influx of these immigrants, the tax base of Springfield has almost doubled.
Yeah.
Which, of course, all those taxes go back to services locally. Now, there's no doubt if you were to put, and in my understanding...
Well, the guy he's arguing with here would probably argue that those taxes shouldn't even be happening because, I mean, these guys are always talking about how they don't want to pay into anything, and then they wonder why their town is starting to deteriorate.
About Springfield is that, like, the metro area is closer to 150,000. But there's no doubt. So when we talk about Springfield, we're probably talking more about a population.
No taxation without representation, as they are voting for their representative.
Around 150,000. The influx of 10, 15,000 new people, period, I don't care where they're from, would create maybe higher rents, although higher rents in Springfield are less than the national average. I still would imagine in Springfield, people have been used to very low rents because there's been very little economic opportunity there, but that's changing because of this influx of the immigrants. There is no rise despite...
I mean, it's by Dayton. Like, Dayton's already a small city. I think it's got like 2 buildings.
The fact that J.D. Vance has said this in communicable diseases. In fact, there's been not only has there been no rise, there's been a decrease in the rate of things like TB in that area. There is no evidence whatsoever of anybody.
So you're telling me the only evidence there is of transmissible diseases actually increasing is the evidence that it's not increasing and decreasing. Got it. Okay. Wow. Way to form an argument, Republicans.
Killing cats or dogs. It's possible there may be. I mean, look, in this country, there is a significant tradition of talking tongues to snakes, right? But you don't hear the idea.
You leave them Bible thumpers down there alone when they want to talk to their snakes.
I mean, honestly, if they want to talk to their snake, they talk to their snakes. But I would never say we can't have any Christians move into New.
I'm sorry. I hate to say this, but I do love that video of watching the snake bite that preacher, and then you find out that he died. It's like, yeah, well.
York, because I don't want a bunch of snakes around.
And
it's absurd.
Go ahead, caller.
It's just, I'm sorry. No, ladies first. Go ahead.
Thank you.
Jeez.
I just want to
He's very, very polite.
say that this is not the first time that immigrants in this country have been accused of eating pets. Did you know that?
Yeah.
That even, going back to the 1880s, Grover Cleveland ran featuring publishing trading cards of Chinese men eating rats, but that's not pets.
Wait, trading cards? Hey. They had political trading cards back in the 1880s. What are we doing? Tops, get on this. Come on.
At the World's Fair in St. Louis.
I'd buy them. Oh, man. Could you imagine that kind of stuff? Just like, I will totally trade you a Bernie Sanders, although it has to be a first edition Bernie Sanders, for the elusive John Kerry's Purple Heart.
There were depictions.
It's got have a little piece of his Purple Heart, the ribbon
of indigenous people eating pets, and particularly also Filipino immigrants eating pets. Filipinos, Cambodians, people who of Asian descent who were immigrating to this country were portrayed as dog eaters. Even as recently in 2016. Senate Republican candidates and Republican candidates throughout the country have referred to immigrants as eating dogs and cats. So my point is that I think that, and the stereotype about voodoo and things like that, it's in that same vein. These are tropes that don't really have much behind them, and I'm being kind of charitable in the way that I'm saying that.
Well, yeah, the few and many. It's like the kid that was born 1960 in May in Minnesota. No one looked at that baby and was like, yeah, he's going to be a serial killer. And that was like Jeffrey Dahmer. It happens. There's a select few that are different. And whether they're in part of the MS-13s and all the drug
guess I
issues
get
that are
what you're saying.
coming. The
You know that we
1,800
just had the
immigrants.
biggest
It's
drop.
crazy.
We had the biggest drop in overdose deaths
Fentanyl?
in our history just recently. NPR
Really?
reported. I think it was a 10% drop. It's just been reported.
Oh, wow.
And
Hey,
90% of fentanyl
that's
comes
good news.
through legal ports of entry.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I never wanted to try it. I don't even take
No,
fentanyl.
I know.
I got
But
a
even
headache.
if
Yeah.
you tried fentanyl, you
I never wanted to try fentanyl, so I don't know anything about that, even though I know that fentanyl does or something that I care about, and I'll blame it on illegal. Fuck you, dude. I hate. Okay, even though he's nice, he's cordial, and that's where I could probably not have this discussion with some. Like, I hate to say it, I would probably lose on this one just because I did right there. I just got very emotional about it. But dude, I hate when people are just like, they're super just. Blah.
wouldn't know
can't even
where the vast
articulate it.
majority of it comes through. I guess the point is that from our perspective, it's like you're you as a Republican voter have been sold all of these lies
Yeah.
that are meant to make you
Yeah, this guy actually kind of sounds like he was somebody that just bought into the lies that he's reading. And that's, where they do the same thing to the left, where they're just like, oh, well, you're just believing left-wing propaganda. How do you know? But like you if you're just an independent mind, I guess, and you go look at both, sides of their reporting, it's just insane how the right-wing bias bleeds into their reporting, where they will just negate facts. They'll just totally take and then they'll create their alternative facts. I mean, the fact that they even coined that phrase to begin with,
too afraid of immigrants.
Benadryl just kicked in, guys.
And and you're sold these in service of obscuring a lot of other dynamics that are going on, which is not to say that there are no problems in Springfield. Yes, maybe there needs to be enhanced training to drive, because people don't necessarily have the same, they don't grow up in a car culture. I can tell you right now, my kid, having grown up in New York City, does not learn to drive like I did growing up in Worcester, Massachusetts. I mean, it was a different culture. But
Sam, I just want to say, as a Republican, and all the things that are saying left or right, one, I'm not racist. I joined the military, and I fought.
Okay, I don't really think anybody was calling you racist, and this is kind of part of that problem, where it's like you hear these things and then you equate it to racism. It's like, all right, mask came off. Oops. You're telling me that I got a little racism on my face? Oh, no.
Fought with brothers of every race, every ethnic
Great. That doesn't mean that you can't still be racist.
background, everything. So I'm not racist. And the second thing is
All right, here's your merit badge. Go on.
that I don't care how they got here. There's a reason for it, but it better not be on our taxpayer money. That's all I care about.
Yeah.
I want to take care of my family.
Yeah. Oh, you want to take? I just want to take care. See, that was exactly my point right there. This isolationist fucking idea that you can just hoard your money and then not give it to, not build any community, not the zero tax structure where, and then they all go, oh, we're living in a crime-ridden hellscape. Why are my schools underfunded? What? Why does no business want to come in and invest in our community?
Well, you
could care less
understand
what
that.
they eat
You understand
or what they
that
eat.
ultimately.
No.
I mean, the reason why I raise the doubling of the tax base in Springfield, okay, is for instances of people on temporary protected status, for a small investment in these people being able to assimilate into our society, to a certain extent.
Sam's nailing this.
For a small investment, we get big returns.
Yeah.
I mean, undocumented immigrants, if you really want to talk about taxpayer dollars,
Oh my, cook.
undocumented immigrants are probably the best deal for American taxpayers. They contribute without getting these services. Frankly, if we wanted to save the American taxpayer, we wouldn't be paying ICE and immigration money to go track down these people, who are not causing any problems except for basically paying into the system and not getting the same returns that documented people do. I mean, if we really were talking about the American taxpayer, what we would do is make all of these people taxpayers.
Yes, chef. Fucking Sam.
We would.
What would be better is all the jobs were here in the United States instead of overseas, and we're paying.
Oh, you are so unrealistic, my man. Oh, dude. Okay, so great in idea, like that's a great idea in I guess, and then we could compete with the world and all these other oh my God, I'm blanking. The sectors of the economy, oh, we can start manufacturing all our toys and all anything that I don't know. I'm having a really hard time coming up with with anything right now. Holy crap, this allergy med is fucking me up.
Ban import export cargo.
Damn it.
Well, I mean, look, the fact of the matter is
But yeah. Either way, it's unrealistic to have everything made here. And on top of that, it's like, for somebody who's traveled the world, for somebody that he literally did the thing where he went and protected our interests in other countries. And according to him, like 9 other countries, you would think that he would have learned like, oh, yeah, there is some merit to this. Okay. Especially if you are, good old patriot American, where you're kind of like, well, I want to spread democracy across the globe. Well,
can't impoverish the rest of the world
Yeah.
for our benefit. But there are a lot of things that we can
go.
do to strengthen the U.S. economy. And if the issue is that, like, we want Americans to get more money, the money exists.
Mm-hmm.
The problem that we have as a society right now is that it's concentrated in a smaller group of hands than it ever has been in the past relative to our population. And the way that you get Americans the money is by raising taxes on people
God.
who have been hoarding that money.
woo!
We can see it in things like Social Security. You know how Social Security system works, right? People are taxed a wage tax, and part of it's paid by the employer, part of it's paid by the employee. Well, when Social Security was set up, and when it was reformed by Ronald Reagan in 1982 or 3, that was predicated on 91% of the wage income that flows through the United States is subject to that Social Security tax.
Oh, that pain.
Well, that number is now down in the mid to low 80s because there's a cap. And what that tells you is that there are more people hoarding more of the money. And that money needs to be shared amongst American society by the people who make America the place where people can make that kind of money.
Right. Yeah. This is where the argument that the middle class, when they get the money, they spend the money. These guys hoard the money and then send it offshores, and then their base blames the left. It's a vicious cycle.
I understand. Yeah, a lot of people that were born in baby boomers, they bought a lot of property real cheap, and then they're holding on to it.
I'm not just talking about those.
Yeah,
I'm talking
what are you
about
talking?
people.
I mean, that's
who are,
anecdotal to you, maybe.
I'm talking about people who are making their money through capital gains. I'm talking about CEOs who are making multiple times what their employees used to make. Even the Stellantis thing. The guy gets a $36 million, bonus based upon the stock values, and he's incentivized to cut workers and destroy communities. I mean, that's the problem. So,
Well, small businesses closed because of the COVID. So a lot of triple Ps were written false.
Starting to see the Republican in this guy. Like, it's kind of weird. Sometimes he'll say something and I'll just be like, oh yeah, he doesn't seem like your average Republican. He seems very, very sensible. But then he says something like that where you're just like, wait a minute, what?
And people were getting kickbacks back then.
well, I understand,
during the,
but
pandemic.
the number of small businesses that are being created has gone up well since that.
Yeah, I was about, like, the way he just made that sound, though, was that COVID just completely kneecapped our economy to the point where small businesses are still not being created when he just said, he just proved him wrong. So,
But I've got news for you. Who was president during those PPP loans, which a lot of the small businesses didn't have to pay, or businesses really had to pay that money back, right?
I've seen firsthand people falsifying documents to get that.
Well, nobody likes
companies on their own.
fraud. Nobody likes fraud under any circumstance. I'm sure you've seen people defraud insurance companies too. All right. Well, listen, appreciate the phone call.
I appreciate it, guys. Thank you.
All right, bye-bye.
Thank you.
that was a great phone call. Honestly, that was one of the... That was kind of what he's been looking for, I think, where now I think he should be moving on from libertarians to just having straight up Republicans call in if they can, because that was we do kind of need to do more of that, understanding where the other side's coming from, specifically the people that are center right. We keep forgetting that not everybody's, just a complete MAGA cultist or even a hard line Republican where they're not they're completely unwilling to change their mind. So, yeah, I think that Sam Seder really is the king of that too, where he makes it so palatable, where you're just like, because that's probably why this guy still listens, where he's just like, he doesn't condescend to me. He doesn't he's not like the most of us left-wing streamers where we just shit on the right all the time and constantly just condescend and make fun of. So that's got to be kind of refreshing. Honestly, I was kind of thinking of this like from the other perspective, where what it would take for me to start watching some right wingers and honestly like hear them out and hear some points. And it's kind of, I hate to say, it's along those lines where it's like if they act that way, and if they kind of have an open mind, then it's a lot easier to go into those conversations. But I mean, whatever, I'm waxing poetic about nothing right now. So, well, I appreciate you checking out this video. If you can, leave a like, comment, and subscribe. I really appreciate you guys hitting that sub button because I'm trying to get to 1,000 subs. So, yeah, if you guys can do that for me, I really appreciate it, and I will see you in the next one.